Thank you to Jonathan Manson and Vicky Tyler for becoming members and supporting the Kinetic Rugby League channel. If you'd like to support the channel and the work that I do, you can for as little as £1 per month by clicking the join button below this video. Also, I've set up a Kinetic Rugby League Discord channel, so if you'd like to join a new Rugby League forum, the link is in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the worst NRL tipping channel on the entirety of the YouTube platform. Now, for a recap of last week, I got 5 out of 8 with the wins, 2 out of 8 with the margins. But yeah, as I say every week, I'm sure 8 out of 8 is just around the corner. So let's crack on, shall we? Kicking things off this week, we have the Sharks taking on the Eels. Now, both have only won 2 in their last 5 matches, so form is shocking for both sides. But the Sharks have at least been statistically stronger in terms of points and some of their general stats throughout the games as well. Now, with Moses back for the Eels, they are definitely stronger on the attacking side. Defensively, they're still not great. They've been conceding 32 points a game on average, which is extremely poor. Now, I think the main factors to consider in this game that the Eels are fairly strong offensively now. Now, they have improved slightly since the very start of the season. They are making improvements in possession, but the defence is still generally poor, as mentioned. The Sharks are the stronger side, especially through the middle. I think we could be seeing a Kafusi and or Adam Fanua-Blake try this week because of the strength they've got through the middle compared to the lapses that the Eels have through the centre of the park. And I think with the Eels coming back from a bye, they will be a little bit fresher coming into this one. But if you look at the defensive differences, the offensive differences, the power through the middle, I think there's the potential for a Sharks 13 plus, but I'm going to go more with a 1-12 margin because of the Eels' improvements on the offensive side and the break and freshness coming into this one. But defense and offense goes massively in favour of the Sharks for me at the moment. So I'm going to go with the Sharks to win 1-12 points. Next up, we have the Roosters taking on the Dolphins. Now, with the Roosters, they're a very confusing side at the moment. They're very difficult to predict, which is very annoying as a channel that predicts games. Now, the Dolphins did lose comfortably against the Raiders in the end, but at least you can look at this start in a positive light, that they started really well, had a lot of control throughout the game. Not great losing it the way that they did, but there's positives and negatives to look at with that one. They probably should have locked that game down as a win, but there have been a quality attacking side, at least over the last 4 rounds, with an average of 33 points per game in those last 4 rounds. Now, Young and Townsend are back in the squad for the Roosters, but not currently starting. Now, Marshall King is actually back in for the Dolphins, starting at 9, so that makes their forwards a lot stronger. I think they've been competing a lot more physically, better through the middle, and with Jeremy Marshall King in there with his speed from the ruck, makes him a lot more dangerous this week. I think the Roosters' pack size makes them a real threat. I don't know if the Dolphins can compete with them in the middle, especially with the size and the just amount of quality that they can bring on from the bench as well. But I think the inconsistencies of the Roosters make it very difficult to back them, along with how strong the Dolphins have been on the attacking side. So the inconsistencies versus the attacking prowess of the Dolphins right now do make me lean one way over the other. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins to win 1-12 points. Next up, we have the Rabbitohs taking on the Knights. Now, both sides are on really poor form at the moment. The Knights significantly worse, obviously. As much as the Knights have been awful, one major plus for them is the fact that their lineup has stayed relatively the same. There's been very few changes over the course of the season so far. So in terms of cohesion, consistency, knowing what they want to do, that's at least a major positive, but I'll kind of get onto that on a negative light in a second. Now, this week, the Bunnies are without Walker, Mitchell and Havili. I do trust Whiten and Gray to create opportunities, and plenty of other players scattered around that squad as well. It's possible that with a good handful of quality players missing, it could make it difficult this week, but I think even with some quality players missing last week against Melbourne Storm, they put up a good fight anyway. Now, the Knights' attack does worry me. Now, at least they've hit double digits in the last 2 weeks. That's a positive sign compared to the fact they scored 6 the week before, 0, and then 4 the week before that, something like that. The argument against the consistent lineup, so getting onto that, is yes, you've had the consistent lineup, but it's consistently failing you on the offensive side of the game. So maybe something needs to change. I like the idea they're not panicking to just completely do what they did last year, just change it on almost what felt like a weekly basis. I like the fact they're kind of trusting the process, because they could get out of this and start to improve at some point. But as of right now, evidence is showing that it's just not working for them on the offensive side. And I really do trust Whiten to just slot right back into number 6, where obviously he's been at the centres for, last few months, really, over the last couple of seasons. But Jai Gray as well, I think, is doing a fantastic job at number 1 this year for the Rabbitohs and deserves a lot more praise league-wide. So I'm going to go with the Rabbitohs to win 13+. Next up, we have the Warriors taking on the Cowboys. Now, both sides are on hot form right now, winning 4 in their last 5 games. The Cowboys with the stronger attack, the Warriors with the stronger defence. So this is a great matchup. The forward battle is incredible. You're looking at Niokore, Barnett, Capewell, Halasima, Clark, Ford and Afoa versus McLean, Tamalolo, Nanai, Bateman, Cotter, Neem and Hess. Spicy stuff. Now, in the backs as well, they've remained fairly consistent for both sides over the last few weeks. So again, for the point about cohesion, it's really beneficial for both teams, and they're producing well offensively and defensively. All I can really do now, with both forward packs looking really strong, form being great for both teams, and the backs being really productive on both sides of the ball, all I can do is look at the big game players. That's the only other thing I've got to lean on at the moment. So you look at the Warriors, they've got Charles Klokstad, you would put in the big game player category. Niokore, you could as well as an international. Egan, I think, deserves more praise than he currently gets league-wide. And Barnett. They're the game changers, the big game players. In the high-pressure situations when the game's close, who do you look at? But you compare that to the guys that the Cowboys have in high-pressure moments. You're looking at Drinkwater, Taulangi, Robson, Taumalolo, Nanai, Cotter, Neem as a huge impact player off the bench. And then, of course, Dearden. And I think even if you just look at Drinkwater and Dearden as the 2 versus the 4 I mentioned for the Warriors, the impact that those 2 guys can have in the backs as playmakers might just be the difference maker. I think it could be a 1-point game. I think I'm looking at Dearden to just be the main game changer in this one. And with the improvements that Purdue is showing on a weekly basis, and how nicely sort of Clifford has fit into that, and Bateman's kind of offering sparks here and there, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win 1-12 points. Next up, we have the Tigers taking on the Dragons. Now, these are 2 very confusing sides, but do you expect anything less from the Tigers and the Dragons? I don't think so. So the main factors in this game, there's 4 key things that I've written down in terms of actual parts of the game and tactics, so that kind of stuff. Number 1, the Tigers come into this game after a tough win against the Sharks, strong opponents. The Dragons, yes, came up against the Roosters, but the Roosters had a sin bin in that game. And in terms of squad comparison, the Dragons should have been a lot more competitive in that, I felt. Maybe they didn't have to win, but at least look a lot more competitive and not concede as many points as they did. So that's one thing in favour of the Tigers. Number 2, both sides have needed to adapt in the backline a little bit over the last few weeks. I do believe it's been slightly more consistent for the Tigers. Do correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but at least this week, this Tigers backline is a carbon copy of last week that won, whereas the Dragons have been on really poor form and have had to make a few changes. Number 3, the options in the halves. You've got Galvin plus Luai versus Flanagan plus King Togia. Correct me if I'm wrong on that pronunciation as well. I'm trying. So there's more quality and experience for the Tigers in the halves as well. That does help a lot. And number 4, I don't normally look at history. Normally I don't pay too much attention to that just because one team's beaten another over the last few years. Squads change. So I don't normally lean into that, but some people do. So the Tigers have lost 5 of the last 6 against the Dragons, and they've only won 1 of the last 5 at Suncorp, but the Dragons have never won in Magic Round. And statistically, Naden and Taruva are very favourable here in terms of tries, whether it be against the Dragons or just over the last few rounds. So based on those stats, recent performances, I'm going to go with the Tigers to win 1-12 points. Next up, we have the Titans taking on the Bulldogs. Now, both sides lost comfortably last week. Maybe a bit of a shock to the system for the Bulldogs. I'm fully aware of the number of sin bins. Don't get me wrong on that one at all. But I think even with the scoreline, yes, I'm aware the number of sin bins was ridiculous. But at least in the first half, teams have to deal with being a man down. But to be 34 points down at half time, I think it's too over the top for me. It's way too over the top. So it could be a bit of a shock to the system, but also a chance to get on the right path. It's very difficult to go undefeated during the season. Even the squads that we've seen over the last few years from Melbourne Storm, and especially the Panthers, it's very difficult to go undefeated. But this might correct them, get them on the straight and narrow, look at the areas where they could be exposed, and make those corrections going forwards. The Titans have lost 4 in a row, and the Bulldogs have lost 1 all season. So there's a massive difference between these sides. The Bulldogs lose Curran, Tupanua and Burton this week, so there's a big loss for them. But even without Burton, that the Bulldogs had to deal with a few weeks ago, I think they had to deal without him in back-to-back weeks, they won both those games. And Bailey Hayward slotted into number 6 quite nicely, and there wasn't any major dip in performance, I don't think. So in terms of plugging that gap, I think they'll be okay there. The Titans, they still need Kinney and Campbell back in that side. I think they are struggling creatively without them. Defensively, they're also an awful team as well. David Fafita has been dropped. He's in the reserves at least. On a tactical note here, Chris Randall is in the back line. Now, forgive me for my lack of knowledge here. He will be the 3-in defender as the second rower down the left-hand side, typically. I don't know how much experience he's had as a back rower or the 3-in defender, so if anyone does have more knowledge on how often he plays in that position, do let me know. But as far as I'm aware, he's quite limited in that area, so tactically, you're looking at Sexton, Preston and Cherry down the right edge, going at the 3-in defender on the left edge defensively for the Titans in Randall, who might not have that much experience there, if I'm not mistaken. So on top of the form, the overall quality, the chance for the Bulldogs to correct themselves, the player availability, attack versus defence, defence versus attack, either way you look at it, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs to win 13+. Next up, we have the Panthers taking on the Broncos. Brisbane are a really tough team to place right now. Again, winning at the weekend against the Bulldogs, solid for them. The sin bins certainly would have helped. But again, going against the Bulldogs, Brisbane maybe overplayed what was expected of them, even being a man up for a portion of the first half. The Panthers have won 1 in the last 5, and they've been struggling to score meaningful points. They've put up handfuls here and there, but just not enough. Like, it could be 14 or 16 or 18 on a couple of occasions. It's a good handful, but it's not meaningful enough, especially if your defence is not keeping teams out. So the defence really needs to improve. I think Jenkins plus Garner plus Talangi on what should be the left edge defensively for the Panthers, I think could be in a lot of trouble versus Reynolds, Staggs and Mariner. It could be really difficult for them to slow down that group of players for the Broncos. Now, with Ricky back in the side this week as well, the Broncos' right edge might do way too much damage for the Panthers to be able to keep up with, especially with them not scoring that many points. There's no Mitch Kenny for the Panthers as well again this week, so it could be an issue in the middle, getting the quick play the ball, spotting what they want in the middle of the field. The Broncos are clearly the stronger attacking and defensive side this season, plus they've got the home field advantage. Obviously not a home game, but is a home game, really. So I'm going to go with the Broncos to win 13+. Finally for this round, we have the Storm taking on the Raiders. This is a quality matchup, by the way. This is a fantastic matchup, and I cannot wait to watch this one. Both sides can score for fun. So this could be a fairly high-scoring game, but we'll see. Now for the lineups, the Storm have Anderson and Farlogo down the right edge defensively, partnering at centre and on the wing. They'll be coming up against Chris and Savage, I believe that's their side, together. So they're in form as well. So two relatively inexperienced players. Farlogo is typically a fullback, so he's slightly out of position. He's had some experience as a winger. Anderson has had a good handful of experience at centre and on the wing for the Melbourne Storm. But against an informed Chris and Savage, it could be very difficult. and especially with Ethan Strange down that side, he, will certainly try and find opportunities there. There's no Harry Grant for the Storm again this week, and I think these factors will hurt the Melbourne Storm. Plus, if you look at the forward battle, still no Asfa Solomona. He's played 22 minutes all season. That was against the Panthers in round 3, I think it was. I think he needs to be in the side. He's in the squad, in the reserves, but I think unless there's some injury that I'm actually not aware of at the moment, or for some reason he can't play or they're not allowing him to play, do let me know about that if for some reason they're just not playing him. But I think he's severely needed in this one especially. Now, I think Utakamanu is solid, King is solid, Kamikamitha, solid. But they've got to deal with Horsburgh and Tarpany, who start games exceptionally well. They've got to deal with Smithies through the middle as well, who's having a fairly decent year, and then Papali'i as the impact player off the bench. The forwards of the Raiders have been exceptional this year, and I don't know if the 3 that I mentioned for Storm will compete with those guys. I don't know if they will. It's definitely hard to look past Pappenhausen, Munster and Hughes because they can create opportunities from anywhere on the field at any time they feel like. But the Raiders team is producing moments all across the board. Their spine of Weeks, Strange and Fogarty, plus what Chris is doing this year, and even Matty Nicholson could have been going through a lot of growing pains this year in the NRL, but is flourishing. And as a Warrington Wolves fan, I am so happy for him. His dry scoring record's looking really good at the moment. This is one hell of a matchup. And the final thing I'll say is, part of me thinks, but I've not really said it much, part of me thinks that the Raiders are a dark horse for a premiership this year. And I think winning a game like this, or even at least being very competitive in a game like this, I think would prove to the rest of the league / fan bases of the rest of the league that the Raiders are a team to be taken seriously. People know they're a threat, but I don't think they're taking them very seriously at that level just yet. So I'm going to go with the Raiders to win 1 to 12 points. So to recap my predictions for this round, I'm going to take the Sharks and Dolphins to win by 1 to 12, the Rabbitohs 13+, the Cowboys and Tigers 1 to 12, the Bulldogs and Broncos 13+, and the Raiders by 1 to 12. For win confidence, I'm at 85% this week. I think there's a few games where it could go the other way, mostly looking at the Dolphins, I think could end up losing this week. I think the Tigers are also a team that could absolutely lose this week, and you never know with the Panthers. Any round they could just switch it on, so they could upset the Broncos, at least in my opinion anyway, could be an upset, and the Raiders could be wrong as well. But I'm quite confident overall with what I've predicted there. For margin confidence, I'm at 60%. I do think the margins are fair. There's a few that have been a little bit rogue on, possibly with the Broncos 13+, and even the Rabbitohs 13+ might be a little bit out there, but also have been quite poor with the margins so far this season. So yeah, that's my recap for this round. So that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have your own predictions, please do let me know in the comment section down below, and make sure you answer the Rugby League fan question that I pinned to the comments as well. But if you'd like to become a member and support the work that I do, you can do by clicking the join button below this video. And also, if you'd like to join a new Rugby League forum and join the Kinetic Rugby League Discord, you can do. Link is in the description as well. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.